for the supreme ruler of the universe, in order to form a more perfect, independent, and perfect government, establish justice, ensure tranquility, provide for the common defense, and promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Thank you. May I have a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
Mr. President, I'd like to propose amending the agenda to allow for a discussion regarding possibly extending the timeline on public speaking by 15 minutes. That would allow 5 more speakers when necessary. I know at our last meeting, we didn't fill the 30 minutes, but in the event we had a larger group, that would allow for another 5 people to speak. Okay. Could we make an amendment to discuss that?
Is there any discussion on that, or is there a second? Is there a second on Mr. Gates' motion?
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion about that?
Well, I just say up to 45 minutes. I mean, it may not always be necessary, but it gives that extra window in the event there are a lot of people signed up to speak.
Well, what if we were to do this? What if we were to, would you be willing to do this? Add an agenda item under discussion, and we could have a board discussion on it? Was that, or?
That is fine. I mean, I'm not necessarily asking for it for this meeting, but I would like to have us make a decision for potentially future meetings.
Okay.
So the motion is to amend the agenda.
Yes.
Add a discussion,
Yes.
to be clear. So
Okay.
we are talking about discussion item 7C.
7C.
And
Yes.
7C if this passes.
Okay. Is there any further, go ahead.
I also want to move to amend the agenda to add an action item for 6B.
Here, let me stop you real quick. Let's vote on one amendment at a time, or
Okay.
amending the agenda at a time, and then we'll come back right to you,
Okay.
Cassie, okay? So we have a motion on the table to amend the agenda for discussion item of public comment, and we have a second for 7C.
Yes.
Being no more discussion, roll call?
Bates.
Aye.
Illingworth.
Aye.
Kimbrell.
Aye.
Patterson. Aye. Rusterholz.
Aye. So 7C is discussion. Okay,
Okay.
Cassie.
All right. I move to amend the agenda to add action item 6B for a calendar change for an additional day for teacher training for capturing kids' heart, which Kim Moore will be updating us under 7B,
7B?
but for 6B.
So we have a motion on the table to amend for a calendar change,
Adding action item 6B.
action item 6B. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I can contribute some insight if the board would like.
Yeah, I do have some questions, so.
So Kim will cover capturing kids' hearts, but in effort to implement this program, we need to implement some training. And as we were looking at the necessity of 2 days together to do the training, we had a calendar difficulty. So we need to tweak the calendar to allow teachers to be gone for a 2-day training session. That's why the action request.
Yeah.
It requires a calendar modification.
And Kim Moore will explain more of that
Okay.
in the packet and
All right,
such.
thank you. Any further discussion? Being no more discussion, roll call?
Bates.
Aye.
Illingworth.
Aye.
Kimbrell.
Aye.
Patterson. Aye. Rusterholz.
Aye. Any other changes to our agenda? Okay, there being no more changes to our agenda, do I have a motion to accept the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Kelly, roll call.
Bates.
Aye.
Illingworth.
Aye.
Kimbrell.
Aye.
Patterson. Aye. Rusterholz.
Aye. Now that our agenda has been amended and approved, let's move on to public comment. And I have something to read for you. Public comment. Please be aware that any personnel or individual student matters are considered confidential under Colorado law. And it is out of respect of the law and our employees and students that we require those discussions take place privately in executive session. It is requested that individual comments be limited to 3 minutes or a total of 15 minutes total for a particular topic. The intent of public comment is to give the Board of Education the opportunity to hear your comments. However, the board will make no decision and take no action on public comment during the meeting. Thank you. This evening we have a podium for you in the center. So, Ms. Kelly.
All right, we'll start the clock for 30 minutes, but I will let you know we only have 10 people signed up, so everyone will get to.
There you go.
I'll give you guys a warning at 1 minute, just to say 1 minute left. And the first speaker is Bill Brown.
Can you hear me?
I hear you.
As the former speech and debate coach at Woodland Park High School, I have worked with students over the years, training them to avoid using logical fallacies. One of the fallacies that they have hopefully learned to avoid in argumentation is the fallacy of cherry picking. That is, selecting a specific example that proves your point and then ignoring all other evidence that contradicts your viewpoint. I bring this up for a simple reason. It's getting really tiring to hear over and over again that since I am a teacher, I must be liberal, teach CRT, hate Christians, hate America, indoctrinate students, and fully support teachers' unions. Now, are these statements true of some teachers or some schools in the United States? Yes, of course they are. But they are not true of all teachers. They're, in fact, I suspect, are not true of most teachers in Woodland Park. And they certainly are not true of myself. Yet, teachers here are constantly being accused of all these things, and when we push back, the cherry-picked examples and the fallacious reasoning that goes with them is once more thrown into our face. This should not happen. Let me move on. Just a moment ago, I mentioned the teachers' unions, and let me state, as I have done before you before, that I am not a member of WPEA. My reason for not joining WPEA is that I have disagreements with the stances, especially that the Colorado Education Association and the National Education Association take. I chose not to join WPEA, even though I know most members of WPEA are conservative, and that WPEA has even taken a stand against many of the ideologies expressed by CEA and NEA. My point here is that when I started in this district, I was given the choice to be in WPEA or not. However, I have not been given that choice when it comes to being enrolled in the Professional Association of Colorado Educators. I have a problem with this as, just like I have issues with CEA, I also have issues with the ideologies that PACE advances. However, by not being given a choice to not be a part of PACE, it now appears that I support all they do. Let me be clear, I do not. Finally, as a student of history, I just have to respond to some wild accusations that have been thrown out in this very room. Namely, that because teachers are all liberal haters of the United States, that we are somehow akin to Nazis. Historically, this is a statement that makes no sense. You see, even though many of the Nazi Party's opponents accused them of being socialist, it was not so, as evidenced by the fact that Hitler and the Nazis arrested those who were socialists. In fact, Hitler and his party came from the politically conservative perspective. All of which leads me to simply say this, that those who make such accusations as this are probably right when they say history isn't being taught correctly, as it demonstrates by their own lack of understanding of such historical fact.
Lindsay Garrison.
I'm going to say something. I don't often want to say something, but when I'm painted with the broad brush using an excellent example of logical fallacies, I want to say that what you said is absolutely not true. Thank you.
My name is Lindsay Garrison. I'm a Woodland Park graduate, a taxpayer, and until this coming school year, I had 2 children in the district. There are a few words that get thrown around this room a lot. And I think we could all use a refresher on what those terms really mean, because there often seems to be a rather biased interpretation or maybe a misrepresentation of them. The first is freedom. Freedom is defined as the power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants. The second is liberty. Liberty is the state of being free within society from oppressive restrictions imposed by authority on one's way of life, behavior, or political views. We do not always have to see eye to eye, but we should all remember that your rights end where mine begin. You have said that parents should be able to make decisions regarding their children's education without interference from the government. You, our elected and appointed representatives, i.e. government, have interfered with my children's education so much without any regard for my input or concern as their parent that I had no choice but to remove them from this district. The last word I'd like to define for you is indoctrination. Indoctrination is teaching someone to accept an idea or belief without question or criticism, much like the American Birthright Standard aims to do by shaping a Christian-based curriculum which would have children memorize and regurgitate information rather than actively learn and ask questions or engage in civic reasoning and deliberation. It's difficult for me to grasp how you can justify your hypocrisies, but you are everything you claim to despise, and I can't wait for November. Is Alfonso Archuleta.
First of all, I was born and raised a Democrat, so I know all the tricks. Secondly, the first man spoke as if he was the be-all, end-all of the subject matter at hand, and he does not have that authority. School board president and members, you must ask yourself, do you want to cave under the evil satanic pressure of those depraved souls who without repentance to the only Lord and Savior, Jesus, the Anointed One, would have you also become depraved and without distinction? Or will you hold fast to greatness and righteousness found only in Christ Jesus and keep our public schools and community of Woodland Park, Colorado, safe from the righteous judgment that all evildoers will eventually find themselves in? If you will hold fast and do what the Lord, God, and Father of our Lord Jesus the Christ requires of you, you will be the last vestige of goodness and possibly greatness in the eyes of God and every God-revering man, woman, and child, not only here in Woodland Park, Colorado, and these United States, but probably the world. And you will carve out your places in history as possibly the greatest school board of all time. Do you work as unto the Lord Jesus? Do your work as unto the Lord Jesus and not to man. And I would like to say this, it is not the critic who counts, not the one who points out how the strong man, the strong woman stumbled, or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man, the woman, who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes short again and again, who knows the great devotions, the great enthusiasms, and spends themselves in a great worthy cause, who at the best
1 minute.
knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that their place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory or defeat. Thank you.
Next speaker is Shannon Villaro.
Good evening. I'm excited that I was able to speak tonight. Thank you. I'm a parent of a special education student at the middle school. I've been informed today that there is currently only one certified special education teacher employed at the middle school. There is one opening for a second special education teacher, but currently we have no applicants trying to get that job. I have concerns on how my son's IEP will be administered without the appropriate number of certified special education teachers. My question is, does the district have plans to fill the vacancies to meet the needs of my special ed student and the other special education students at Woodland Park? If the district is not sure what to do about the shortage, I would be happy to work with any of you for different resources that we do have for special education students. So, thank you.
The next speaker is Kitten Walker.
So I would like to address the first speaker's comments. I agree with him that if he does not want to be a part of PACE, that the district should allow him to withdraw, and any other teacher. That is a personal choice that each teacher and employee should have. Another thing I would like to address is the fact that our American Birthright standards that you have implemented are standards. They're not the teaching tool. And my understanding is that the teachers have their choice on materials that they want to use to teach to those standards. That they're not required to use any specific materials. And please correct me if I'm wrong on that. But again, the American Birthright standards are not the teaching tools. Yesterday, actually it was today, a friend of mine told me that one of the high school teachers has been saying, and this is hearsay, and I admit that those of us in this room that don't have children in the district should not be here. I do not have children in the district, but these children are my future, and I have every right to be here. Going back to the first speaker, we have 3 minutes to speak. His 3 minutes ended and he continued to speak. Is this the kind of—
1 minute.
Is this the kind of behavior that is being represented in the classroom? That you do not respect the time, the recommendations, etc. So, in order to finish on time, I'm going to end with a prayer. So, Father, I just thank you for this time right now in Jesus' name. I thank you for this time to speak the truth. John 8:32 says, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." It is the truth that we know that sets us free. 2 Samuel 12:16 says, "Stand and watch with the great things that the Lord will do." So we are standing and we are watching. In Jesus' name, amen.
Okay, the next speaker, I'm not even going to attempt to say your name because I'm going to totally butcher it.
Me, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. P is the first letter.
Patricia.
It's Patricia,
But just
different spelling.
Okay. And if you'll just state your name for the record when you get up there, since I couldn't pronounce it. Thank you so much.
First name or full name?
Full name, please.
Patricia Bieleka.
Thank you.
You have to say that one more time. My ears didn't keep up.
Patricia Bieleka.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Patricia and I'm the proud parent of one merit student, soon to be 3 merit students this fall. I moved to Woodland Park last year. Before that, I spent the majority of my life living in one of the top 3 largest cities in the country. I attended public school my whole life, and I might be one of less than a handful of friends who've managed to escape without indoctrination. I absolutely love living in Woodland Park. I traded in daily gang shootings for mountain lions, and it was the best decision that I've ever made. I want to voice my support for this incredible school board. Before moving here, I would hear horror stories from my friends back home who had to deal with their progressive school boards and the Progressive Teachers Union. When our kids were old enough to attend school, I was very concerned about what the future held. We talked about homeschooling, we talked about alternative options, and then my friend suggested Woodland Park. When we first started looking at Colorado, and the first thing he told me about Woodland Park, parents of Woodland Park were fed up with the schools and they started their own school. It sounded dreamy, and it is. This school board has done so much for the students, teachers, and parents of our communities. Let me list it out for you. Here are things that benefit parents and students. We have seen a 15% increase in enrollment, placing us top 5 in the entire state. Chartered the first school in the district, Merit, go Bears. But by the way, this is the most popular school by enrollment growth. Increased services such as bus services to all the schools in the district and free healthy meal programs. Kindergarten grade level available in all the schools, and improvement in academic performance. We're going in a positive direction in the district as a whole. Here are things that benefit teachers. Increased benefits package for teachers, including free liability insurance at no cost and increased life insurance, and largest pay raise for teachers in the history of the district. I was a little confused when the pay raise was announced, because the month before I saw a room full of teachers, some teachers, who were whispering and making rude comments after every speaker who supported the school board. But then when the school board announced the raise, those same teachers stood up and cheered. So which one is it? Do you not appreciate the school board because they're a group of individuals who love this country,
1 minute.
want the best education for our kids, and have good family values, or do you only appreciate them when it fills your pockets? This school board puts students first, students and the parents first, and that's how it should be. It should not be your wants, your needs. It should be about doing what's best for the students, and that's what the school board does. I don't want any teacher making decisions for my kids. I don't want you speaking your opinions on biased, controversial topics to my kids. I am the parent. Stay in your lane. The people who hate our school board because they came up with some wild conspiracy theory that they created against the school board, because this school board wants to focus on education and educating young minds to think for themselves and learning about facts, not feelings. And these teachers want to be trendy and be part of a radical left movement that this community does not approve of. There are a ton of schools and communities that will welcome you and your progressive agendas. Leave our schools and leave our kids alone. Also, stop wasting taxpayer money on all these juvenile and baseless lawsuits you're coming up with. Imagine how much more the school board would have accomplished if they weren't constantly defending themselves from hateful and lying individuals. Thank you.
The next speaker is Dana Kramer.
I'm Dana Kramer. I'm the mother of 5 children in our district. Today I'm here to tell you about some of the amazing educators who have left our district after this past year. Let's start with the principal who chose to do the float lane. She could have sent someone else out there to do the float lane, monotonously punching in numbers to send students out to meet their parents. But in rain, snow, sleet, or sunshine, she was there. She set up a program called Think Tank, which later evolved into Discovery. With Discovery, the kids were able to sign up for classes such as cookie making, football, stilts, Egyptology, Rubik's Cube, etc. This was my kids' favorite part of the semester. This is the principal who taught that every kid has genius. She believed in our students. She even empowered our kids to later lead some of their own Discovery sessions. How cool is that? Does this sound like someone who wants to indoctrinate our children? Maybe. Indoctrinate them with selflessness, critical thinking, curiosity, wonder. This is the kind of educator we need. The next teacher is the teacher who helped my daughter immensely after my family was in a car crash.
and she was a bit traumatized. This teacher, along with the extra mental health programs at Gateway, taught my daughter tools to calm down when she'd get worked up after the accident. And yes, we did seek out our own counseling outside of school. These tools allowed her to focus on her academics and get back on task. Does this sound like the kind of teacher who wants to indoctrinate our children? Sure, indoctrinate them with kindness, thoughtfulness, gratitude. This is the kind of educator we need. The next teacher, the teacher who sacrificed her lunch period to teach a few students, including my son, who were beyond 5th grade math during the pandemic. She saw the potential in them and she sacrificed her lunch period. Each of these students tested into 8th grade math and 6th grade with the help of that teacher's dedication. Does this sound like the kind of teacher who wants to indoctrinate our children? Absolutely. Indoctrinate them with excellence, drive, stamina, brilliance. This is the kind of educator we need. And these are the kind of educators that are leaving. They're selfless, creative, sacrificial, and brilliant. And we're gonna miss them. What do my kids have to go back to next year? Every teacher that taught them, helped them to read, they're gone. I fear what next year's gonna look like. I'm excited to meet the new teachers and welcome them. Serious question, are you trying to destroy our schools? Because it seems like a lot more than just growing pains.
Time.
The next speaker is Logan Bruce.
Glad I made it here, almost didn't make it. News has really been interesting lately, huh? District's been hitting a lot. Unfortunately, it hasn't been for very good things. I won't talk much about the board's actions because I think that they speak for themselves. I will still say that I am continually more disappointed by your actions than I thought I could ever be. And that's just time and time again. The board continues to stoke division within the community by trying to stifle community speech, by trying to suppress comments. The most constitutionally important principle in our country is the right to free speech. Within that is also freedom from religion.
That's right.
It's freedom from religion. If I don't want to have religion around me, I am free to be away from it. That includes in public places. I have a question. Prior to the suit that the ACLU brought on my behalf, you guys had the opportunity to withdraw the banishment. Why didn't you do it then? If you thought that I shouldn't be banished, why didn't you then? Why did you force the ACLU to submit the actual lawsuit and go through with all of that? It saddens me. I am very disappointed. Your actions have showed a lack of ethical awareness for the impact of your decisions, especially considering that you are the leadership of an educational institution. You are presenting to kids that they don't need to listen to other people, but they can just silence them if they don't agree with them. The lack of transparency in decision-making has been appalling. I should know it because that I saw it from the inside, and I still couldn't see anything even though I was on the inside. That's how little transparency there is between anything going on in the district and the board. I had hoped that we would be able to get past our differences and that you would be good leadership, that you would foster in the change that you wanted to bring that helped students. But you haven't done that. And it saddens me.
Just a minute, Kelly.
As you state, Mr. Ruth, as you stated, in the Constitution, in the First Amendment, is freedom of religion, not freedom from religion. If you're gonna recite the Constitution, it should be recited correctly.
Thank you.
All right, the next speaker is Carol Barrett.
I have a planned speech and I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it or not. I think all of us here.
Move the mic over closer.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
There you go.
I think all of us here. Can you hear me now? I think all of us here agree that there's freedom of speech for our Constitution. And I think all of us here can agree that this country began as an escape from persecution of religion. So those are things that are part of our beginnings. It's a part of our history. What I want to say to this board is thank you for what you've done. Thank you for doing your very best to protect our children. My concern is for them. As an educator since 1965, retired educator, I think, partly. My concern is for the kids. I don't have children in this district. I don't even teach here anymore. But I am concerned about their physical and mental and spiritual being. That they are not exposed to things that are way beyond their years, but they are not taught things that are not true. And I appreciate the fact that you folks have stood up for that. I want you to know that I support you, and I think if most of the people in this room understood fully and completely what you were all about, that they would change some of their opinions. You were not here to take away their rights, to indoctrinate their children with things
1 minute.
that are not appropriate for their age. You're here to protect them. Thank you for that.
All right, and the last speaker for this evening is Drew DePatty.
Today, I rise in opposition to the union slate school board candidates who want to take back control from parents and reintroduce extreme sexual education concepts to young children. Mike Knott, Seth Bryant, and Keegan Barkley make up the ultimate Trojan horse candidate slate. On the outside, they seem palatable, like they might even bring normalcy. But once they get inside the city gates, they will bring back the most extreme policies of the teachers' unions who are financing their campaign. Take, for example, the Healthy Kids Colorado survey, which can be downloaded with a quick internet search. The union slate supports taking money from the state under the guise of student counseling, which introduces strange sexual concepts and ideas around identity to children as young as 9 years old. Question 3 on the middle school survey reads, what is your gender identity? A, female, B, male, C, genderqueer / non-binary, D, I don't know my gender identity, parentheses questioning, E, I have a different gender identity. The union slate of candidates and their supporters cried that children's mental health would suffer if this program were taken away. But in fact, introducing confusion around these issues and even grooming children into alternative identities creates mental health problems, which we are seeing across the country. The head of the big union, American Federation of Teachers, is now touring the country on the bookmobile of so-called banned books, including the one titled Gender Queer, which discusses chest binders, masturbation, sex toys, gay sex, and blowjobs for children as young as 9. At pride parades throughout the month of June, radical LGBTQ activists chanted they were coming for our children. The union slate is supported by radical teachers unions, radical LGBTQ activists, and nameless, faceless, woke education bureaucrats from Denver and DC. They will burst out of their Trojan horse and do the bidding of these special interests, and the children of this district will suffer. I want to appeal to the good people of this school district who may not know what these candidates stand for, especially those who publicly support them with long signs on your property. You have the opportunity to make a stand for allowing children to be children and allowing parents to have a say on this issue.
You know what, I'm going to have to stop. We have to be careful that this doesn't turn into one side against the other for a campaign issue. I understand what you're saying, but...
Are you censoring me?
I really don't want to, no. But I'm going to let you, I will let you continue. But I really think, I don't want our meetings going on to one side or the other competing against each other during public comment. I think you can understand what I mean. This isn't.
I really don't, actually, because it's been 2 years of relentless attacks and slander from the other side. And the first time that you are censoring somebody is me. So I actually have a major problem with this, and maybe I should talk to Logan and get the ACLU involved.
Well, I'm just going to say, continue, but I don't.
You could call them. I don't know that they take you on, though.
All right.
For free speech.
Continue, but we're going to lay down no more campaign promotions. It's just not the right place to do this.
I'd like to see what that language looked like.
I know.
Looks like when you start saying.
I only play a lawyer on TV. I don't know for sure whether what I'm saying is right, but arrest me first. That's what I always say. It seems like it should be the right thing to do, that it's not a place for
Speech does not
campaign.
include slander.
Slander is a legal charge.
Okay.
Well, let's let him continue.
Yeah, continue.
You have 25 seconds.
Now that you know what the stakes are, I ask you to turn in those campaign signs to the union slate and tell them you cannot support their extreme union agenda. You will be on the side of children and on the right side of history for supporting academic rigor without the sexualization of children, and for saying no to all the radical special interests outside of this community who want to change it for the worse. Thank you, Mr. President.
That was the last one?
That was the last one.
Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Next on the agenda, we have consent agenda. Do I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
I have a second.
Second.
Roll call.
Bates.
Aye.
Illingworth.
Aye.
Kimbrell.
Aye.
Patterson.
Aye.
Resterholz.
Aye. Number 6, action. Facilities use agreement and charter agreement updates with Merit Academy. Superintendent Witt.
Discussion or Yes, Board. We took At the beginning of the year, of course, getting ready for the new year, we took a look at school preparations for each of our schools. And of course, Merit Academy is by contract. So we also reviewed the contracts and came up with a handful of changes that after a year of experience operating the school, we feel like should be made in the charter agreement and in the facility use agreement. I guess a couple that I would point out are the percentage administrative fee, which is reconciled at the end of the year each year by law, came in way below 33% this year. So we've adjusted the estimate from 5% to 3.5% to be more closely aligned with actual costs. It is reconciled at the end of the year and trued up, so it is real costs at the end of the year anyway. The other change is probably the most eye-catching is we moved from student count cost ratio to floor space cost ratio. And that's because the cost related to facilities is based on how much of the facility you're using, not how many feet you have in it. You could squeeze 40 students in a room to try and tighten things up, but that's not what you want to do. You want to make certain that you are having reasonable class sizes and that you have the right facility space for each party. And so with that balance, the right thing to do is charge by square footage, not by head count.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to accept or approve the proposed amended facilities use agreement?
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion on it?
I'll just add, I remember way back when we were doing the charter, there was a lot of debate amongst the board and administration and Merit's people about divvying it up by either floor space or pupil count. And my understanding was that the way we were doing it, the pupil count was really not really standard from what you see with the charter schools when they're using facilities and paying for the right to do so. And I do think it makes sense. They have grown significantly. They are growing again into next year, and growth is what we want to see. That speaker was right. We are top 5 enrollment growth in the entire state. In fact, that growth, which was over 15%, eliminated the 2 previous years' decline. So in 1 year, we wiped away 2 years of decline that happened, and that was like the 19 to 20 and 20 to 21 school year. So that's very exciting. And I know they're growing again. I think they're expected to have about 400 or more full-time students.
That's right.
And so their growth is the growth of the district, which is the growth of the budget, which goes to growing teacher salaries and benefits. So it's all a good thing. And so I do think it makes sense to make that change.
Anyone else have a comment?
No, I mean, other than like, I just noticed there were some updates on just some spelling, like you updated on the bus, and just so the people, public know, like one of them says the parties will collaborate, be added in, or we did annually on the drop-off pickup schedule, which will be attached here too. And before it used to say prior to August 1st, 2022. So now it says before the first day of student attendance. So just cleaning up any language is what I noticed up here, so.
Oh, and yes, because actually the FUA, as it previously stood, didn't allow for Merit to use the bus loop for buses and for their students to get picked up or dropped off there. But because they are going to be able to use the buses this year, we need to make that change to make clear that that's where they're supposed to be and that's where they're supposed to go. So, yeah, I mean, there's some cleanup that's coming from just growth and change and working together. But I think it's all to the good. So I appreciate the changes.
Any other comments? Kelly, roll call.
Bates.
Aye.
Illingworth.
Aye.
Kimbrell.
Aye.
Patterson.
Aye.
Rusterholz.
Aye. Discussion and information, Roman numeral 7. A, facilities update.
Oh, no, David, actually, we added that.
6B.
Oh, I stand corrected once
Calendar
again.
change.
Calendar change. Training for teachers.
6B, training for teacher.
I'll describe, and Ms. Moore, if you need to correct me or add something, give me the sign, okay? Ms. Moore, our Chief Academic Officer, will talk a little bit about some of the academic and school programs and initiatives starting for the new school year. She'll talk about, among them, Capturing Kids' Hearts, which is the program that we're implementing this year for character development across the grades. Each month it focuses on a different character development trait, and we try to coordinate that so that we're getting good positive messaging to students. In that implementation, one of the mechanics elements is we need to send our teachers to 2 days training. The calendar, the service calendar didn't have 2 days together to be able to do that. So we need to add a teacher day for training. And then since that was a student contact day, we need to have a student contact day at the end. So does everyone have this? Kelly, would you tell them where it is? I believe it's the bright pink.
That's just the bright pink tab.
The bright pink.
Go with bright pink. So October 24th is the service day that needs to be added. So we have the 23rd and the 24th together for training. And then since that is a service day now, not an in-class day, because teachers are gone, we need to add one class day at the end of the calendar, April 25th, to add a day. Those are the changes that are requested. So we maintain the same number of educational hours, but we need 2 adjacent training days that are available for capturing kids' hearts.
Mr. Witt, it's basically just a swap of those 2 days.
Thank you. So that was was the 25th a service day before?
Yes, it was. I'm sorry. Yes, it
Okay.
was.
So we're not So we're not adding a service day, right? That's a good point. Thank you for pointing that out. We're not adding a service day. It was a service day on April 25th. We're exchanging it into October and putting the education day on the 25th instead. So the important point there that I think she's pointing out, and I appreciate it, is we're not extending the calendar. We're simply changing a service day and an education day, exchanging them.
And this needs to be a vote of the board to change that?
Because the board approved the calendar, we need you to approve a change.
So exchanging the days requires our vote.
That was the opinion of your attorney.
All right. Any further discussion? Any other necessary discussion? Ms. Kelly, roll call, please.
Oh, well, I move to approve.
Yes. Let me start over. Do I have a motion to approve the change?
Second.
Roll call.
You guys are killing me. All right, Bates.
Aye.
Illingworth.
Aye.
Kimbrell.
Aye.
Patterson. Aye. Rusterholz.
Aye. Well, we got that done. All right, now, discussion and information. Facilities update.
You know, it's into the projector dropping from the wall.
And I'll just interject while things are coming down. As we're preparing for the new school year, I wanted to give both our Director of Business Operations and our Director of Education Operations an opportunity to expose you to some of the plans and some of the activities that are being done both to get ready for the school year and will be done into the school year. To kind of make everyone aware of what's going on, and there's a lot of great things going on.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I brought pictures because everyone loves to see pictures. So this is our facilities update. We've had a lot of projects going on across the district over the past couple of months, trying to optimize our time when the buildings are mostly empty. So the first thing that I wanted to bring your attention to are lockers. This has been a topic of great debate and discussion across our elementary schools. Since we now have the 6th graders that have moved back into the elementaries, lockers were a big hot item, and so I wanted to show that we have lockers installed. I have pictures of them installed at 2 of our elementaries. They have been installed at the 3rd, but the picture's not there. We'll be back out to Summit since this is a gateway.
So, Mr. Salt, this is for the 6th graders.
6th graders.
At the elementary schools this year, so that they have, so many of them were looking forward to, oh boy, I get a locker, you know, I remember that.
That's right.
So we've accommodated that. Good, thank you.
So this is a gateway for their Columbine. And then here they were at Summit. Again, they have been installed since then at Summit, but we just haven't the picture of them installed since then. So we recently, and still are in the process of putting a sidewalk in front of Gateway right now. So as you pull in onto Panther Way. There's a little island of grass right now, and then the parking lot on the other side. And so the issue that we had seen and was raised to our attention at the end of last year was parents will pull into these parking spots that you'll see kind of in the bottom right that goes all the way down the island. And students would jump out of the car and shoot across the street where there's no crossing guard, and it's causing problems as we're froggering across there. So we've implemented or put in a sidewalk. If you can still see a few timbers that are going up to create a retaining wall on that backside. These were pictures taken this afternoon, so this is pretty close to current state of it. A few more timbers to go and we'll be all set. So the sidewalk connects to the crosswalk there where we have a crossing guard station to help make sure that we are safely crossing students through traffic and into the buildings. Here's the other end of that where it connects down into the blacktop. And then this is representative of other doors across the district, and I think you wanted a whole PowerPoint of doors. But here are a couple doors that were replaced. These were wooden doors before that had kind of come off the hinges and were in a bad state. This is over in the high school. And so these are new metal doors. They have been installed and painted, and they look great, ready for the school year. This is a big project that came up last year. We implemented as soon as school was out with bleachers. So this is the bleachers in the main gym. They've been replaced. They look great. We're still working on the handrail across the top. That'll be fixed momentarily, but within the next week or so before students get here. So beautiful WP there. And then here are the bleachers in the north gym as well. So both sets of bleachers got replaced. And then I provided this graph earlier in one of your packets. I believe it was in May, maybe June. And so this is just kind of an update of the completed ones and a couple of them that are still in progress. There's a couple that we have decided that we weren't going to be implementing, not yet. It just cost-wise, it made sense to kick it out another year. And so that's kind of where we are currently. Those are all the updates that I have on the facility at this point. Thank you. This is a sneak peek of the next.
Good evening. So I'm just here to give you a short or brief update on the education office. So wanted to let you know that as a district, we're moving away from our localized evaluation tool that they've been using over the years. We're moving to the Colorado State Model Performance System, also called RANDA. So that's just a warehouse to hold teachers' evaluations over the years. About 160 of the 168 districts throughout the state of Colorado already utilize this warehouse. It allows teachers, if they were to change districts, to be able to access their evaluations when they move to those other districts. It's maintained by the state, so there's no cost for us for upkeep. Our administrators were trained on the use of the RANDA system during our recent leadership retreat, and then our administrators will be teaching and training our teachers on how to utilize that as we begin back to school. So, any questions on the evaluation tool? Okay.
Sounds positive.
I'll make one comment.
Yes, sir.
So you understand this. This is one of many activities we have going on in the district to streamline, make more efficient our efforts, and to lower costs of operations. This just makes sense rather than maintaining your own custom evaluation system when the broad categories of evaluation are the same and mandated by law. Why not take advantage of a system that is simple and available to everyone? It makes us more efficient and lowers our cost.
Capturing kids' hearts. So I know some of you may have questions about Capturing Kids' Heart. Capturing Kids' Heart does focus on character development, building strong and appropriate relationships between students and staff, but also staff to staff and staff to parents. It helps staff create a strong sense of community in the classrooms, and it helps and staff members propel student growth and achievement through those relationships. As Mr. Witt stated, Capturing Kids' Heart also has a monthly character trait with age-appropriate lessons that are available for staff to utilize as a resource. Columbine, Gateway, and Summit Elementary Schools will participate in the Capturing Kids' Heart training on the 16th and 17th of this month. So when they come back to school next week, the teachers will be engaging, not just teachers. The elementary schools are going to be engaging all their paraprofessionals. Some of their office staff will also be attending the training so that everybody's on the same page. We're using the same vocabulary. Everybody will be familiar with the processes that are utilized in Capturing Kids' Heart. And now with the approval of the calendar change, we will be able to get the middle school and high school trained as well in October. I'm excited to see the great changes that will, and the great things that will happen from this training and the sense of unity that we'll have within the district because we'll all be using the same processes and the same language and a common character development program. Focus on academics. Our staff is excited about getting back to work and focusing our attention on students' growth and achievement. While we recognize there's a lot of noise that might be happening over the next year within our own community, but also throughout the nation with it coming up on an election year, we're going to stay laser focused on our mission, and that is to educate our students and help them to achieve great things. CMAS scores have been released, however, they are embargoed until August 17th when the Colorado State Board of Education meets and they get presented with the scores. After that date, then I'll be able to present scores and the great things that are happening in our district as well. So I plan on presenting that information in September.
Any questions?
I want to add one thing to our note, if I might, just to complete the thought on CMAS scores. Thank you, Ms. Moore. I really appreciate you making the board aware of some of the great things you're doing. It is a real privilege to have Mrs. Moore with us as Chief Academic Officer. The CMAS scores specifically, the board had asked that we show not just information on our most recent, but a trend. I assure you we will be presenting next month a 5-year trend for these scores and where we are, not just current scores.
Very good.
We already have them ready for presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was going to ask a question about the Capturing Kids' Hearts. I believe there was a mention earlier about each month focuses on a particular character development trait or virtue. I was wondering, Ms. Moore, if you were able to tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. I believe I put a copy in your packet of the different character traits. So the month for most schools don't normally start until September, so they have the same trait for the month of August and September. The word is empathy, so we'll be focusing on empathy. So the character traits will be a focus within each of the schools. And one of the things that I've heard the Gateway principal, Jenny Courtier, is going to be working on looking to recognize students that are showing empathy and celebrating that in her school. Each month there's a different character trait that lessons are available for teachers to utilize and to teach students about them. The lessons are age appropriate, so there's obviously lessons about empathy would look different in kindergarten or first grade than it would look in the high school. Mm-hmm. So they're age appropriate, they're already pre-built, so teachers don't have to come up with different resources, they're already available. And so they would teach about the lessons, and then the hope is that schools and staff members would recognize and celebrate the successes when students are displaying those types of character traits. And with having one monthly focus throughout the entire district, I think that gives us all a sense of a unified focus for the month. So I've been working with Mrs. Paul about having information to go out on the website so parents are also aware of what the monthly focus is, so they could also be looking at ways to celebrate their students at home.
Great, thank you.
If I may, could I read through them?
Yeah.
August, September, empathy. Next month, self-direct. November, teamwork. December, responsibility. January, respect. February, kindness. March, courage. April, perseverance. And May, integrity.
I think perseverance is really important in April, especially since that's when we're doing CMAS testing. So a lot of our students will need to really embrace that when we hit that season of the year.
Very good.
Thank you.
Can I ask Superintendent, related to the facilities update, the sidewalk at Gateway, am I allowed to praise the teacher whose idea that was yet? Or are we saving
We'll
that
be
for
doing a
later?
spotlight on that story, but I don't think there's anything wrong with you mentioning how that came to us, how we heard from others and responded to needs that are pointed out.
Okay, I just want to say, and so if she's going to have a spotlight later, I won't say this wonderful lady's name just yet, but that was totally her idea to put that sidewalk there. And I think it's a bit of a funny story to say that 5 years ago, when I had, I think, my two oldest at Gateway, this lady, she does crossing guard duties a lot and has been doing them a lot at Gateway. My very first interaction with her was her rightfully chastising me because I had parked in the parking lot and was holding my kids' hands, walking them across to that sidewalk over there right next to Gateway. And she's, hollering at me, and I'm like, what's going on? And she's saying, you're supposed to come over here to where I'm at and come to me and cross over here and do this whole other thing. And in 5 years' time, she's softened on me a little bit, and she's gotten me trained up. And at the end of last year, and I'll say I frequently joke with her because she hates the cold weather. And so, I joke with her when it's cold, I hope she's enjoying it if not. And I'm chatting with her as she's doing the crossing guard duties, and she mentions this about this sidewalk and that she has been advocating for it for many years and always been told there wasn't enough money. And it was just one of those great ideas because I realized it was going to improve safety because you wouldn't have parents, as Gateway always does, dashing across and basically having to cross that drop-off traffic that's happening there. So it's going to increase safety, hopefully a great deal, and also it's going to make that drop-off a lot speedier because those cars are going to have to be stopping for those pedestrians and those kids crossing. And I know that's always a great concern to the staff there that are trying to make sure that all the kids get into school safely every morning. So hopefully it's going to make it safer. It's going to make it faster for the kids and parents, and it's going to hopefully reduce stress levels for the dedicated employees who are out there sometimes in the bitter cold to make sure that everybody's getting in safely and quickly. So she deserves tremendous praise and thanks, I think, for sticking with a great idea and never giving up on it. And we're very pleased, Superintendent, that it was something that the administration was able to do. I think it's going to be a great thing, and it's 100% her idea. So
wonderful, thank you.
I look forward to the spotlight on her.
Thank you. Anything else? Let's move on to discussion and information. The last one, letter C.
Hold on.
7C.
That's where I'm at.
7C. That's where you're at.
I am.
I told you.
I said C. All right. Mr. Mick.
This isn't always going to be necessary. I mean, we had plenty of time tonight, and last month we had plenty of time. But there are occasions that there are a lot of people signed up to speak. And I've heard people's frustrations about wanting to come and speak and not making the lottery. So all I'm considering is that we would add an additional 15 minutes when necessary. If we're giving 3 minutes per person, we would go from potentially 10 to 15 people, and, only as needed. Obviously, it's not always needed, but it gives a little more flexibility in the event of heavy attendance and a lot of people wanting to speak.
Any comments?
No, I think it's a good idea. It's obviously something we waxed and waned on from time to time.
Yes.
One time, we've certainly had public comments where we were unlimited at one point, and we had public comments that went more than 2 hours. Since it was at the beginning, the actual meeting itself really didn't get started sometimes until I think one time 9 o'clock is when we really got down to it.
We went till 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
1 o'clock?
And so I guess what I would add on that, Mr. Bates, because I think it makes sense. Sometimes we don't have enough time and sometimes we have more than we need, and that waxes and wanes. What I think we should also consider, or Mr. President, you set the agenda, so I would ask you to consider this in trying to do what's going to be best for everybody, and is we have public comment at the beginning. I believe City Council does theirs at the end. I don't know what the county commissioners do. But what we might need to balance, right, is if we make public comment in general longer, is then balancing the staff that sit here and have to be here, like the redoubtable Ms. Haven, and our teachers and our administrators who are making presentations and things like that. Obviously, you think next month, CMAS is going to be a big presentation on that. If we're going to make public comment longer, should we consider moving it from the front to near the end so that the staff are able to take care of their jobs and get home to their families? Or should we keep it at the front, even if it's longer? So that's just the only other thing I'll throw out there in terms of if you're wishing to adjust it for the next meeting, that's something else to consider as well.
There's pros and cons to that because our staff is here so early and they're tired and you want them to have the presentations, but at the same time parents are here, they have kids at home, family. So I'm flexible on either one of those. I don't think I have a strong opinion either way, as long as, and I'm okay with approving the 15 minutes if needed to. I have no problem with that either. But as long as we are respectful to the staff and the teachers too that are here, and we're not keeping them to 1 a.m. Because City Council had issues with that when our would keep people until all hours of the night, and then the same administrators and staff would have to come in the next morning early as can be. So.
Well, and that was what I felt like was a reasonable compromise to allow the extra 15 minutes. That allows 50% more speakers in the event we have a long list. So potentially go from 10 speakers to 15. I think it's a pretty fair compromise.
What are your thoughts?
No, I agree with Director Bates. If we're gonna go to perhaps unlimited public comment, then I think it should be at the end, but I think added 15 more minutes to it, we should leave it where it's at.
Well, let's give it a try and see how it goes, would be my thought.
Okay. Yeah, and if we're gonna maybe make the change next month, David, maybe we'll get some feedback from parents and teachers and everything as to what they think. We'll throw it open a little bit.
So we have two different things that have to be decided for the next agenda, is extending the time of public comment by at least 15 minutes. And do we want public comment at the beginning or at the end? That's what the decision
There's
is.
pros and cons to that. I'd have to give that a little thought.
Yeah.
You know what, I'm gonna do something.
This is not an action.
Huh?
This is not.
Oh, yes. Yeah, this is not an action item. This is something that the president decides the agenda. So I'm going to do something just because I get to be the president for a little bit. There's a decision at the beginning of the meeting, near the beginning for public comment, or at the end near public comment. Just for me to see from the people who are here, who wants it at the beginning like it is now? Who wants it at the end of public comment? Come on, some people do. Okay, well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. All right. Who likes the idea of extending public comment? We all agree on something. Very good. I love it. All right. On to Board of Education Directors Reports. Shall we start with the ladies? You have anything you'd like to say?
Yes, I would like to address something that was commented on earlier, the WPEA and the PACE, the comparison. And it was my understanding, and please someone correct me if I'm wrong, but the WPEA actually their contract was written into each individual employee's employment contract. And I believe the verbiage was that whether you were a member of the WPEA or not, they could still represent you. So I just want to clarify that for people maybe that do not have that understanding.
I also thought we could, educators could opt out of PACE.
Yeah, so did I.
Let's clarify.
So the issue with PACE that has been raised, we want to be careful with. We're not requiring employees to participate in PACE in any way. We're providing professional liability insurance. PACE happens to be the provider. If an employee chooses to get a login and be a part of PACE, they are welcome to do so. If they choose not to, they don't have to. This is professional liability insurance, which happens to be provided by PACE, just like we provide other insurance policies from other companies.
And staff likewise don't have to participate in those insurance programs.
Right, now we do provide it to all employees, to be clear. It's a benefit, but just the insurance.
Right. Okay.
Is there any, must they utilize it? Like if something happens and they need insurance, must they use it? Or could they say, no, I don't want that, I don't have to participate in it? Is that?
They are insured.
Oh, they are insured, okay. Like health insurance or any other kind of insurance?
Liability, professional
Okay,
liability.
Liability insurance, okay, understood.
There's a hand in the back. I'm not sure what the question is.
Say it again?
It's up to you. This is a question and answer.
This isn't really a question and answer, but go ahead.
No, I'm just making a comment. My information was given away, and I've had people show up to my house on multiple occasions.
Oh my.
Twice, to try to get me to unenroll from the I Speak Education Association.
I have no idea about that, haven't heard anything about that.
Well, they knew my address, so
Wow.
somebody's given that information away.
That's terrible.
And they came and asked for me 2 times.
That's terrible.
Yep, I told them.
If they come by a third time, maybe you can find out how they're finding out
Their
about that.
literature is showing up in our mailboxes.
Say it again.
Their literature is showing up in our mailboxes too.
Oh. I have no idea.
Mass mailings, blanket mailings?
Nope, targeted mailings. Okay.
Thank you for letting us know.
Yep, that's harassment. They should not come to my house.
They should. Mr. Mick, do you have anything you'd like to
I
report on?
already covered the thoughts I had.
I'll keep it short and sweet. I hope everyone enjoyed July and had a great month, and I hope everyone enjoys the next week and the start of school. So
It's winding down.
it's winding down. I know summer's ending. Was it like snow in a few months?
Hey.
I want to add a comment because we are going to be going into executive session soon. And one of the things that's on there is that we have received some sort of proposal from the city regarding sales tax. And I want to highlight this issue. And of course, in executive session, no decisions are made, but apparently our lawyer has received something from the city's lawyer and we're going to get briefed on that. Not everybody knows, but back in 2016, there was a grassroots campaign to pass a sales tax increase of 1.09%. That would be collected and then dispersed for the Woodland Park School District to use. And there was a new city council member who seems to have made it a personal agenda to try and use that against the Woodland Park School District. And one of the things that everybody should be concerned about is I was at the city council meeting where they were discussing this. And there was suddenly a lot of discussion about repealing this tax or sunsetting it or limiting it or slashing it or something like that. And I'm sure everybody here likes the idea of lower taxes. That's sort of a natural default position, not just in Teller County. But what I'm not sure that this city council is appreciating is that the funding for school districts is not that ordinary or relatable to the way a lot of other funding through governments is done. For instance, everybody I'm sure knows that the mill levy override is sort of the chief way of funding your school district. That's your property tax. And I don't know, if you want to do another survey of hands, I don't think you're going to see hands if you ask whose property taxes went down or whose property taxes are not high enough already. They are skyrocketing right now. I think most people's experience is their property taxes doubling, and that's residential, but commercial is even worse. The idea behind that sales tax, which was passed before I was even a resident here, was that you shift your tax burden not just to the people who live here, but to the people who visit here, the people who are on their way to Breckenridge and stopping to get gas or eating at our restaurants and things like that. That doesn't just relieve the tax burden for your homeowners, it does relieve it for your commercial business taxpayers. And the way the state law works is that school district funding is made from state funding, which in our case is the mill levy override and the sales tax. It's also contributed from the legislature's, general fund. They contribute a certain amount, but they have a very complicated formula that they can never quite get right and that they mess with every year. But more or less, they say, you guys have to contribute a certain amount, and if you fall short, we fill in the gap. And so if you take away the sales tax, we still have to make up that amount, and that amount has to come through the mill levy override. And the state has been pushing an increase in mill levy overrides. Back in 21, the state had passed a law mandating that every district raise their mill levy override by a certain percentage every year until they hit a target rate. So that every district was going to be contributing a certain minimum amount. Some districts had to make huge increases, and some districts like ours were able to do it more minimally. But it was totally mandated by the state of Colorado, and this school district was without power to do anything about it. And I want people to be aware that when the city is throwing this out there and suggesting that this sales tax should be looked at because maybe certain city council members don't like charter schools and they don't like the charter school, which is a public school, being able to be funded by the sales tax, that they want to get rid of it or they want to capture it for themselves. That will result necessarily in big increases in everybody's property taxes, whether you just live here or whether you own a business here. And everybody should be aware that that is a very serious and complicated issue, and it should not be resolved simply because 3 or 4 city council members aren't fans of charter schools. That affects everybody, not just whether you like charter schools or not. The other thing I want to say is from the proposal that they were debating at the city council meeting, they were attempting to use an agreement to basically invert what we can use the money for, because the measure that was passed states that we can use it for any educational purpose, and then it specifies certain ones. It says including, which is to make sure that people understand that it specifically includes things like facilities improvements. It includes things like debt repayment, like from bonds and things like that. It includes things like staff raises, so that it was very clear to the voter who was voting that educational purposes included things beyond just buying books or implementing curriculums. It included a lot of stuff. It was extremely broad. And my understanding is what the city is trying to do is to change it so that it can only be used for those specific things. So what was an inclusive list is becoming an exclusive list. And the irony is, if the city had their way, then we could use the money for facilities improvement. We could use the money for staff pay. We could use it for debt repayment. We couldn't use it to buy books. We couldn't use it to implement new curriculums. And we couldn't use it to spend it directly on the student and the student's welfare. And so it would actually just reverse something and make it, almost nonsensical. And so that is the issue that is being debated apparently amongst the city. I think they think it's kind of cute, and they think they've got a handle on something that is politically to their advantage, and I think is being driven by an anti-charter school agenda, which is not shared by this community, and I think it's reckless in the sense that it will lead to a massive increase in property tax without the residents knowing. And by the way, this passed in 2016 by over 60%. And so I think they are playing with fire right now. And so I urge this school board to do its due diligence in looking at the city's proposal, making sure that we can cooperate with them and work effectively with them to the extent possible, but without losing sight of our duties and our responsibilities to our kids, our teachers, and our taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Dave.
Thank you for putting that together so well. Well, I don't have anything that I want to add to it, but at this time, we're going to be going into executive session to get some information from our attorney in regard to what David was talking about. So we will be, what? So at this time, I need a motion for us to adjourn to the executive session. And pursuant to CRS 24-6, 402, 4B, D, E, and H, for legal advice on specific legal matters related to city sales tax revision proposal and for negotiations and advice to negotiators regarding CDE and BOCES agreements and rules and city draft agreement, and for the advice to negotiators regarding BOCES contract performance, and to discuss matters involving particular students, and for specialized details of security arrangements for investigations. At this time, I need a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to go into executive session.
Motion to go into executive session.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Have a second.
Second.
Roll call.
Bates.
Aye.
Illingworth.
Aye.
Kimbrell.
Aye.
Patterson.
Aye.
Rusterholt.
Aye. So just to let you know, no decisions are made or voted on in executive session. It's for information purposes only. After the meeting, we'll come back out here and adjourn. Thank you very much for attending.
I just want to thank you for bringing that up tonight.